not worth the trouble it would take to hit you. You're not worth the powder it would take to blow you up.
There's a scene in the film, Leonardo DiCaprio and Timothée Chalamet. Those two guys are annoying?
They drove me crazy that day.
Is it legal to have the three of you in one vehicle? One of you has to be the designated survivor?
But it was the most annoying day of my life, I'll tell you that.
Those two guys are...
In the early 1990s, Leonardo DiCaprio was on the brink of becoming Hollywood's golden boy. But long before the Oscar glitz and global fame, there was raw friction on set, especially with Mark Wahlberg. The two young actors were cast together in The Basketball Diaries, a gritty coming-of-age film where tension bled from fiction into reality. Wahlberg, still shaking off his Marky Mark persona and desperate to be taken seriously, saw DiCaprio as an entitled, theatrical lightweight. DiCaprio, meanwhile, viewed Wahlberg as a street thug-turned-actor with little regard for nuance or art. The result? A toxic, testosterone-fueled battlefield. Wahlberg later admitted in interviews that they hated each other and had to be physically separated during rehearsals. Behind the scenes, it wasn't just professional rivalry. It was a full-blown personality clash. Leo's sarcasm and aloofness clashed with Mark's blunt aggression. The crew reportedly walked on eggshells around them. And although both have since claimed they made peace, award show footage and industry circles suggest otherwise. Even today, they riff Mark Wahlberg represented physical tension. Claire Danes introduced emotional distance. On screen, their chemistry in Romeo plus Juliet was electric. Off camera, it was ice cold. At just 16 years old, Claire Danes was focused and disciplined, a classically trained performer with little patience for nonsense. Leonardo, just 21 at the time, had already adopted a cocky sense of humor, pulling pranks and joking constantly on set. While most of the crew laughed it off, Claire found his behavior juvenile and irritating. According to insiders, she often asked directors to separate them during downtime. She once described DiCaprio as immature and admitted that working with him wasn't pleasant. There are even whispers that the two refused to speak to each other unless cameras were rolling. While they delivered one of cinema's most iconic romantic performances, their real-life relationship couldn't have been more opposite. Years later, Claire continued to dodge questions about him, often pivoting quickly during interviews or offering curt replies. She never starred alongside him again. Hollywood may celebrate the magic of Romeo plus Juliet, but the truth behind the scenes was anything but a fairy tale. Claire, when it comes to old-school, no-nonsense Hollywood icons, few stand taller or colder than Tommy Lee Jones. Known for his stone-faced roles and sharp intellect, Jones has built a career on gravitas and discipline. And Leonardo DiCaprio? He represents everything Jones despises about modern Hollywood: youthful arrogance, performative activism, and what some call celebrity without substance. The two men never worked together on film, but their circles overlapped. Award shows, charity galas, and private industry events. It was at these moments that Jones's disdain became quietly visible. Eyewitnesses recall Jones refusing to stand or applaud during DiCaprio's speeches. At one closed-door Oscar event, he reportedly told a fellow actor, "He plays the part, not the man." Sources close to Jones say he views DiCaprio as a media-made actor, someone whose fame and environmental causes outshine his actual substance. The most cutting criticism? A leaked quote from a private dinner where Jones allegedly muttered, "He's no Paul Newman, he's no Brando, he's just pretty." For DiCaprio, who has spent years trying to shed the pretty boy image and prove himself as a serious actor and activist, the silent judgment from a figure like Tommy Lee Jones cuts deep. But Jones has never cared about hurting feelings, especially when it comes to actors he sees as products of hype. If Tommy Lee Jones represents the icy judgment of the old guard, Juliette Lewis embodies the fire of personal betrayal. In the chaotic swirl of 90s Hollywood, Lewis and DiCaprio were more than just industry acquaintances. Rumors of a brief but intense romance circulated quickly, fueled by shared appearances and whispers of late-night rendezvous. At the time, Lewis was one of the most unpredictable stars in the industry. Bold, outspoken, and deeply emotional. DiCaprio, meanwhile, was just entering his heartthrob phase, charming everyone from casting agents to co-stars. But according to insiders, the relationship soured fast. Lewis reportedly felt used, emotionally discarded after DiCaprio's star began to rise. In an interview years later, she referred to one of her early relationships as a cruel game of ego and vanity, with someone who only sees people as disposable characters in his script. She didn't name names, but fans and journalists quickly made the connection. When asked directly about DiCaprio, her tone turned cold. He's success when two alpha personalities collide in Hollywood. The fallout is rarely subtle, and in the case of Russell Crowe and Leonardo DiCaprio, it was thunderous from the very start. The year was 1995, and Crowe was cast in The Quick and the Dead, a stylized Western produced and headlined by Sharon Stone. DiCaprio, still in his early 20s, wasn't the studio's first choice, but Stone was adamant. So much so, she personally paid Leo's salary to ensure he joined the cast. That move sent a message to everyone on set, especially Crowe. According to behind-the-scenes accounts, Crowe felt slighted, believing that DiCaprio was being handed opportunities he hadn't earned. It didn't help that Leo's boyish charm and charisma often drew attention, even in scenes where Crowe was supposed to be the focal point. The two reportedly clashed over creative choices and on-set behavior, with Crowe finding Leo's attitude flippant and unprofessional. Years later, when both actors were once again rising to prominence, this time as award season regulars, the tension only escalated. In press interviews, Crowe would regularly sidestep praise of DiCaprio, offering only vague compliments, if any at all. A few directors in Hollywood are as notoriously combative as David O. Russell, a perfectionist to a fault, and known for fiery outbursts on set. Russell has fought with some of the biggest names in the business, including George Clooney and Amy Adams, but his off-screen clash with Leonardo DiCaprio never made headlines the same way, mostly because it never made it to the set. The story goes like this. In the early 2000s, Russell approached DiCaprio with a lead role in one of his upcoming films. At first, Leo was interested, but according to insiders, the script didn't meet his standards. DiCaprio reportedly demanded heavy rewrites and creative control, something Russell, fiercely territorial, would not allow. A heated meeting followed. Words were exchanged. Leo walked. The role went to another actor, but the damage lingered. Russell, who rarely forgets a slight, allegedly began bad-mouthing DiCaprio in private industry. Leonardo DiCaprio's career reads like a Hollywood dream, a meteoric rise from teen heartthrob to Oscar-winning legend. He's worked with the finest directors, headlined billion-dollar blockbusters, and built a reputation as both a talented actor and a climate crusader. But behind that picture-perfect facade lies a growing unease, a quiet rebellion within the very industry that once embraced him. While millions idolize DiCaprio for his roles in Titanic, Inception, and The Revenant, some of his peers see something else, a carefully curated brand. The longer he stayed on top, the more vocal his critics have become. Some call him inauthentic, others opportunistic. Even younger actors and the next generation of Hollywood have whispered about DiCaprio's reputation for controlling narratives, avoiding difficult roles, or decline in Hollywood. Being untouchable comes at a price, and Leonardo DiCaprio has paid it in full. While fans marvel at his string of career-defining performances, insiders often describe him as distant from the very community that built him. Despite decades in the business, DiCaprio remains curiously disconnected. He doesn't attend industry mixers, rarely mentors emerging talent, and maintains a tight circle of friends, many of whom are not actors at all. He's a lone wolf in a town built on tribes, and that solitude, while glamorous to the outside world, can easily breed resentment within. Directors who once courted him now whisper about his conditions and uncompromising standards. Co-stars describe sets where Leo's entourage blocks access, where schedules revolve around his preferences, and where emotional distance becomes a wall. Some call it professionalism, others call it ego. What's undeniable is that DiCaprio has become a symbol of a certain kind of stardom, rare, protected, and unreachable. And when someone becomes that big, that controlled, and that invincible, they stop being seen as a person. They become a target. That's why names like Wahlberg, Danes, Lewis, Crowe, Jones, and O. Russell still carry tension when paired with his. Whether it's old grudges, bruised egos, or legitimate grievances, one thing is clear. Leonardo DiCaprio isn't universally loved in Hollywood. He's respected. He's envied. But behind the curtain, behind the gold statues and model-filled yachts, the hate is very real, and it's not going away anytime soon. Ging ensemble work that might shift focus away from him. Former collaborators have described him as guarded, strategic, and emotionally distant. And despite his massive platform, he remains one of the most elusive stars in modern cinema. He rarely opens up in interviews, almost never, addresses controversy, and keeps his personal life hidden behind velvet ropes. For many inside the industry, that silence doesn't read as mystery. It reads as manipulation. As one anonymous actress once told a reporter, "Leo's nice, but only when the cameras are rolling. Off camera, you're either useful to him or invisible." In the shadows of Hollywood, those words echo louder than applause. Circles. One producer claimed Russell said, "He thinks he's untouchable." Just because he's DiCaprio doesn't mean he understands story. For Leo, who carefully crafts every public move, this kind of behind-the-scenes tension is career kryptonite. Since then, neither man has acknowledged the failed partnership. Publicly, they've never collaborated, and according to insiders, they never will. In an industry built on fragile alliances and power plays, this feud stands as a quiet standoff, one fueled not by publicity, but by clashing egos and the unspoken wars behind closed doors. News source from a 2007 award show claimed Crowe referred to DiCaprio as an industry pet project, implying his success was more curated than earned. They've never appeared together on screen since. In a world where image is everything, Crowe saw through the sheen, and he didn't like what was underneath. "Full," she once said, followed by a silence that said more than words ever could. Publicly, she's never lashed out directly, but her performances, interviews, and biting social media posts all hint at someone burned by a man she once trusted. In Hollywood, personal history rarely stays buried, and Juliette Lewis carries the weight of that brief encounter like a scar. For her, DiCaprio isn't just a former flame. He's the symbol of everything fake beneath Hollywood's golden surface. Danes didn't just dislike Leo, she dismissed him entirely. Rely appear together publicly, and when they do, the air between them is thick with tension. For many, Wahlberg represents the actor who never bought into the myth of DiCaprio's genius and made no effort to hide it.